Thank you for starting the recording. So welcome everybody for our working group meeting on discipline-specific guidance for data management plans. And I'm happy that you are here. I just start with some general remarks. So you recognize that the session is going to be recorded, and so it will be made available on the RDA website afterwards. So for those of your colleagues, they might not have been able to attend today, so they can check it afterwards. Please mute yourself. You know this from other video conferencing when you're not talking. So the main communication will take place via the chat function you see here. And if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function. There will be some collaborative notes. Stefanie Ketas already put it in the chat, the link to this collaborative note. So use this link and add your name there in the attendee list, please. So we are already in some kind of introduction already and in the welcome. So again, welcome to everybody. After this, I will give a short overview on the results of the online survey. And then I think we have just one discussion room and we talk about some questions we prepared. And in the end, of course, there will be a summary and some next steps you should do. So, it's actually, this is the discipline-specific guidance for data management plans working group. We have different co-chairs, and Daniela and me, we are from Germany. We have Santosh, Jasmine, and Jessica from the Netherlands, and Shannon and Brianna from the US. So the aim of from our working group, it is already in the title, so we develop a discipline-specific guidance for the creation of data management plans to support improving the effectiveness of DMPs and increasing the value of data management plans to researchers. This working group actually was recognized and endorsed in December 2020, and up to now we have 79 members. We, as working group chairs, we meet every 2 weeks, and there is a public meeting every 8 weeks. And I really have to apologize that within the last few months, we couldn't manage to organize a public meeting, but we try to do it very soon again. So as a working group, of course, we have some milestones. So the first one is to identify what is already known, identify knowledge gaps, and also additional use cases. So we conducted an online survey of researchers and discipline-specific data stewards. Next step is then to discuss some certain points with disciplinary experts. Of course, there is the creation of a guidance document then, and in the end, there's dissemination and adoption of guidance documents for test cases. Okay, and now I will summarize the survey. Actually, so I hope some of you took part in the survey. We started it in November and we closed it in the mid of January. Altogether, we had 358 respondents, including students, researchers, and data professionals, data stewards. And we're quite happy about this number. This survey was actually divided into different parts. We had altogether 21 questions, and it was like demographics, data description and collection, a part on data documentation and quality, active data storage and backup, data archiving, publishing and sharing. And the last part was guidelines, principles and best practices. And we used a variety of different channels to reach the people, so for some feedback. And we included different mailing lists. RDM mailing lists used RDA, NFDI mailing lists, and yeah, also simple Google countries and research data management. And it was altogether quite successful. So we had a nice coverage over the globe with the answers. And you see on the left side that we have answers from professors, from postdoc and senior researchers, also PhD candidates, research technicians also, some students. Biggest group was research support, of course, because of the channels we spread it, maybe. And we had others and some didn't answer. But yeah, it is quite nice to see. You see they have some lag in Africa, but altogether it's quite nice. Okay, now I go into this into the results of the questions. The first question was, or I present here, is what kind of research data do you use or are used in the domains you support? And the plot is like you have different colors which indicate the different domains, like engineering, humanities, and social sciences, life sciences, and natural sciences. And then you have different small panels, which is actually the kind of research data the people use in their domains. And so, for example, you see on the lower right side, like algorithms, simulations, and the lowest line code and software, which is mostly used from engineering. And if you have a look into these textual references or audio recording, visual recording, audio visual recording, you see this is more research data which is used in humanities and social sciences. So we see the differences, but they are used by all of the different domains too. So the next question or answers you see here is, how do you or the researchers you support produce or collect the data for analysis? Again, you have the different colors for the different domains, and the different panels are the kind of production or collection. So first one is, for example, observations. And again, you see some differences between the different domains. For example, surveys, interviews, like catalogs, repositories, databases. Also web scraping is more used by humanities and social sciences. And others like lab experiments, for example, is used more in life sciences compared to the others. And yeah, all of them, for example, use or derive or compile from other or use other data resources, which is, of course, for us not clear now which it is, but they also try to derive data from others. So the next one is, oops. So, do you or the researchers you support ever reuse existing data? I mean, this is the aim we have, that the people reuse the data. And we are quite happy to see, so the bluish are, yes, we use or reuse data, and the reddish colors is, no, we don't use it. So we are happy to see that at least 50% in natural science, it's even more than 75% really reuse existing data. And this is, we have some different answers like, yes, published data or created by their own team, for example. But it's good, they reuse the stuff, so. The next one is, how is the quality of the data controlled? And this plot is a little bit different from the one from those ones before. You see again the different panels now is for different domains, and you see the different answers for each panel. And what you see is that, for example, engineering sciences, life sciences, natural sciences, they repeat measures, and also the kind of calibration method gives some quality information, whereas, for example, for the humanities and social sciences, they use controlled vocabulary, and peer review data, like the natural sciences also prefer or use or think that peer reviewed data is of higher quality, of course, than which is not peer reviewed. Okay. The next one is, do you or the researchers you support describe data with metadata? And fortunately, yes, they do. And almost all of the different domains use it with 75% about. And I'm also quite happy to see this. So when I was a researcher, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 years ago, I didn't even know what metadata is. I just created data, terabytes of it, but I didn't know it. So here, I think also this is increasing now. And yeah. And in this case, we also, or the people had the opportunity to answer, like, yes, they used metadata to describe the data, and to give more information, what kind of metadata they use. So they had the opportunity of some free text to include here. And here you see two different examples, one from engineering sciences and the other on the right side from natural sciences, especially from chemistry. And you see the engineering sciences give information about the machine, device or simulation settings, for example, or the date, and of course the name of the responsible researcher. They say something about software and hardware which was used to create the data. In chemistry, for example, here there are some information about the instrument setup, also some compound or membrane IDs, and also, for example, temperature is important as metadata information. This plot again is different from the others, so I give you some time to understand it. So the question here is, what supporting documentation do you or the researchers you support generate about the data so that the data are interpretable, replicable, and so on? Oh, we have some echo. Okay. So here you see some, so the different panels are the different kinds of documentation they use. So you have code books or field notes. And for example, the natural sciences, oh, I don't see anything. Do not use the README, what is surprising to me. Oh, they often use the README, oh, sorry, it was the green. So the green is often used, the red one is not used. So natural sciences use README files, often also engineering use it. Whereas for field notes, for example, and they also have already some naming conventions they use. And for example, the humanities and social sciences use lab notebooks or logbooks a lot more than others do. Oh, they are not using it. Maybe I'm confused now a little. Okay. The next one. So this question is, are there any legal, ethical, or contractual obligations that impact how you or the researchers you support carry out research data management? And here you see that the differences are quite large. Here, especially life sciences and humanities and social sciences have some obligations here. It's different. Most are legal and ethical ones. And like engineering and sciences and natural sciences, they don't have so many obligations in this direction. And I think this is the last one to you, or I present. I mean, we had 21 questions I told you in the beginning. The last one I present here is, do you or the researchers who support make use of any guideline for research data management? And again, we see some differences. Life sciences and humanities and social sciences have more of, or use more of some guidelines than the other two, but at least 50% have some guidelines. This can be discipline-specific, institutional, or some general guidelines. And that's it from my side, or the summary from, or to show you some of the results. And are there questions on these results? If not, I think we go into the breakouts, or actually we do not, I don't know how many, we have 13 now. I don't think that we need a breakout room here. So we want to talk about different questions. So I told you that the aim is actually to have a guideline or some guidelines or guidance in the end. So the question here is how to develop the guidance, in what structure, what format, then how to share such a guidance, to use a platform, create one. Are there any questions that should be added to a standard template to provide guidance to? Should adding questions be done at all? Where to add guidance which does not exactly match existing questions, and how to maintain and sustain such a guidance. And yeah, maybe some of my colleagues would like to take over and leading through this breakout now. We have some parts. So we included this breakout also in the collaborative notes, so that you and we can add all the comments there.
Yvonne, would it be easier for the discussion to have 2 breakout rooms? So maybe then we have 6 participants per breakout. I would say that works better for the discussion, or what would the others?
Yeah, we can also do it like this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You might lose people.
Yeah,
when you start breakouts. It's scary.
The first one already just left because of this, maybe, hopefully not. Yeah, but I think we can do it here because it is 4 of us or 5. It's just, unfortunately, 6 participants, which are not co-chairs or hosts. So I think we can manage it to do it here.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can just start with that first question and see if anybody has thoughts on what structure a guidance would be useful in. So what form of guidance would you find useful for kind of supporting disciplines with their data management plan needs? Either if you're a researcher or if you're somebody that's helping researchers create their data management plans.
So I don't know. I mean, I can't really say much, but from my perspective, I like visuals. I like a flowchart or a diagram or something like that. Whereas I would assume that well, my experience from being in the humanities was that people actually like text a lot more. I don't know if that's still the case, but I think, you know, you had a nice overview of what different people actually use, what kind of data they use, or what different disciplines use. I think it might have to be tailored, targeted to that, maybe.
Do you mean to that data type?
Okay, maybe that's pulling a long bow. I was just thinking, if someone does a lot of audiovisual and media and interviews where they're recording people on video, for example, they might appreciate a short video that they can watch, or maybe not. Maybe they've seen enough videos to last them a lifetime. I don't know. Whereas someone who likes to read things might actually prefer a document that just outlines this is what you need to do. I don't know. It's more like design of education material, which isn't really my area.
It's definitely an interesting, like, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I know we think a lot about, at least where I work, in kind of creating resources for researchers of just making various formats so that whatever their learning style is, they can access it. But I know that's not something we had considered in this area before, so I think that's an interesting perspective.
Have you actually asked that question as part of your survey? What kind of guidance people would like to see? Like what types of guidance?
No, I think, and other co-chairs, if I'm wrong, I think that's something we were hoping to ask more detailed through interviews. We felt like that was going to be a little more difficult to suss out from a survey.
Yeah.
So in the survey, we also ask about only the learning resources, if there are any learning resources at the moment in the discipline.
Also, if people are not comfortable, switching on their mics and chatting with us, please feel free to just enter it into the Google Doc that has been linked in the chat. If you just scroll down, it says just you can enter it into breakout 1. Please feel to answer any of the questions. I'll add the link to the document again in the chat. Oh, I see Stephanie's already added it again. So yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe some of you already have some experience. They have created some guidance or have seen some or used some guidance they really like. So you can also give a link or tell us something about it if you have seen something very good. So of course we would like to create something which is really useful and good for usage.
So maybe you could define a little bit what you mean by guidance. Because I'm struggling a little bit to think about what could that look like. Do you have a couple of examples maybe from your own disciplines?
Okay, I can jump in. I think what we mean by guidance is essentially in the data management plan, if you have areas that address your specific needs. So for example, you have code involved, and maybe there is a little bit of guidance on how you would enter into the data management plan regarding things like version control. Something like that. That's along those lines is what we're talking about. Or if you're doing experimental things, then maybe details about, say, how you could design a protocols or things like that. A document that lays that out and details about that. Anybody else want to add a little bit more?
I was just going to add, and I think the hope from the survey and through these kind of follow-up interviews was also to kind of make more transparent some of the kind of community standards in these various areas so that that's readily available both to data stewards that are supporting researchers in various disciplines as well as researchers themselves if they weren't aware of it. And I see that Paulette raised her hand and also put a link in the chat. Do you want to talk?
Yes, hello
Great.
everyone.
Hello.
Oops, why can't I lower my hand? No, don't know. Look, do you know the RDM kit, which is a general guidance which is developed by Elixir, and it also they also work with the FAIR cookbook, which is more recipe based, but the RDM kit covers all the data lifecycle and covers many communities. It is mainly directed towards life sciences, but so the question for me is, I don't really understand what the content, are we talking about content today or only format or structure? And to what extent then would you sit alongside something like RDM kit? That's a question for you.
So I would say that we produced a lot of content in the survey, and so in some disciplines we are still looking for some interviews to get more information or more content, because we have some disciplines which were really low in participation. So I think the content is not here the first thing we want to talk about. So when you have any content, feel free, but I think it's more how how it could look like how we or maybe like Stephanie said, so think about how disciplines are spreading information.
Okay, I see. I
Right.
understand. Thank you.
And so the Elixir part, so I had a quick look on that, but it's more general, right? It's more for all disciplines.
Life
Yes,
sciences.
but life science, it's heavily biased towards life sciences, but its aim is to be generic here. But I understand what you said with respect to content and how disciplines are spreading and disseminating information. I understand. Thanks.
Because Susanna, so she came along also that we can maybe place it on fair sharing or anything like this. So this could be an option, but yeah, we never thought about, okay, how disciplines were spreading information and how are they working with data management plans.
Yes, okay. Very interesting. Yeah, thanks.
It may also be interesting to look at who you're targeting. Like, are you targeting early career researchers? Are you targeting senior researchers? Again, you know, you could potentially, I don't know, you might get early career researchers more with podcasts and videos and TikTok, and you might get others more with flowcharts and documents and things like that. So it may also be a little bit of an sort of, yeah, I'm going to say age, but that's not quite what I mean. But it might have some cultural, there might be some cultural things that you might want to consider as well. But I think the main thing would be to really work with people in the discipline. So if you're looking at engineering, to just work with some engineers in different fields, maybe. I don't know. You've probably done quite a lot of that with your interviews. Would you like some thoughts on where to share the guidance?
Yeah, sure, please.
Again, I mean, I don't want to I want to just do a brain dump, but so my thinking was, for example, in Australia, we've got the Australian Research Data Commons. So we're sort of a place that people come to when they look for information on certain things, be it fair data or things like that. So if you have organizations in the domain or in the country or in the whatever slice you want to look at, they might be good multipliers. Or the e-research community or e-research, digital research community, whatever they're called these days. They might be good multipliers, but I think what I would try to do is get it onto student curricula for at least higher education students. Because that gives you probably the most bang for the buck, because those that stay in the discipline will potentially be there for quite a long time. And so you get a bit of temporal coverage, if you like.
Yeah, I think, Stephanie, your advice on some of this of kind of hitting graduate students and early career researchers that are kind of able to kind of adapt this to their workflows is really smart.
And I think the other thing might be to show success stories. So someone having a data management plan, what did that help them? Again, probably something you've considered, but some snappy little story that might also motivate people maybe to put a bit of effort into it.
Yes, if I may, just following on what you just said, success stories and how it benefits the discipline or the research or etc. Because it's most of the time considered as a burden still today. So if we can find stories where we can demonstrate eventually the benefit of doing data management.
And jumping ahead a little bit, but do you have any thoughts on that fourth question of how to maintain and sustain the guidance? I know there's other various forms of guidance out there, and I've seen some where they have kind of community contributions that can happen through things like GitHub, where then like there's a kind of organizing body that reviews those, but it allows for that kind of continual update. Would something like that be useful, do you think, for something like this?
I think that's a really difficult question, because on the one hand, you want something reasonably stable so that people feel like, I don't have to relearn this every 6 months. On the other hand, you want to react to things that change. Sorry, I think I've just stated the problem. I haven't really helped you any. Yeah, again, maybe also through bodies that do that sort of thing, organizations that provide advice, latch on to them perhaps.
Maybe it would help if you can think about it this way, like what if you're involved with any communities that do update guidelines, what method works best for you? Is it through, say, having it actively on, say, something like what Brianna mentioned on GitHub, or say some other platform, the methodology that makes it most likely for you to be able to participate, for example?
I can only tell you what doesn't work very well, and that's just sticking it on a website. So is the question about how do you sort of logistically maintain and sustain, or how do you also get more input? How do you improve it? And how do you sort of maintain it that way?
I think I see it as a little bit of both, and actually through hearing replies, it's also the idea of, maybe it's also a way to get future continued involvement from these various communities through things like, I know people will do like, this is not the right word, but like update paloozas, where you have like an event of some kind around that, and people can kind of have a short, almost like hackathon type event around that guidance.
Like a book sprint for guidance
Yeah.
documents.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you'd want continued community involvement into those sorts of things, and that's probably hard. Maybe industry peak bodies, if they're interested in that sort of thing. You know, the Society of Engineers or IEEE or something like that. I don't know if they would have an interest in something like that. Because they would be able to reach large numbers, presumably in the discipline. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud here.
It's exactly what we want.
So maybe a question for Paulette. I don't know if you, I don't know how you're involved in the RDM kit, but how was that developed? Do you know?
I'm involved only very marginally. It comes out of Elixir, so it's the European umbrella for life sciences, bioinformatics, really. I think it's only 2 years old, and it's completely community produced and maintained. Sorry, we are, as far as I understand, we are only now we are talking about maintenance, and it would be by the community, and it's via GitHub, and people are taking charge of, are being responsible for specific bits. I cannot say more. I'm not the expert here, but I think it's community maintained and developed. And it was within short-term funding, which will stop in 2023, only around data management, but we are already, there are talks today that there will be something beyond, and that's Elixir Converge. There will be something beyond precisely for sustainability, maintenance, and that it doesn't fall in a heap in 23, because that's not the point. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thanks. So what are your thoughts so far on maintaining and sustaining the guidance, sort of throwing it back to the group chairs?
I think from hearing what's happened with Elixir, I really think getting a interested and involved community around these various guidance documents is going to be really important. I think we as co-chairs can push it so far, but we need to have that kind of community involvement as well. And this is something I've seen. So here in the US, there's the Data Curation Network, and they've created kind of data curation primers. And those are primarily maintained and updated via GitHub. And how they've done that is it's primarily members. And then, as I mentioned, they have like an event once a year where they do like updates to it. People can kind of self-assign to a specific one they feel like they have expertise in. But there's also the opportunity for if somebody's using them or has a comment on it, that they can actually push a change via GitHub that can then be reviewed by the owner of that primer. So that might be a method. I think there's lots of approaches that could be taken. That's just one I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I would second what Brianna said. We have some internal working groups within our universities that do similar things, and also say something like the Turing Way, where they have sprints from time to time, but also updating it through that. That I think is the one that seems to work best. We've also tried to do it in the form of Jupyter books, but again, the format of updating would still be similar. But yeah, we had like a training session on how to use it and then have the updates done. That seemed to have received positive feedback as well.
It might also be good for people to just have an email address or something like that where they can provide a short comment rather than having to sort of go through GitHub. I mean, depending on your subject area, that may not be something you'd go to naturally, or even Jupyter notebooks. So just, you know, I don't know, for someone in humanities, it might be stereotypically more easy to actually go and send an email or write a piece of text than just stick it on a website as a comment.
I also think that it is a challenge that we would like to cover many different disciplines, because one aim is also to support people who are working or support researchers from different disciplines. So if we give it to the different communities, so then we lose this option for those who support different disciplines to find the information they need to support. So I think it's quite difficult. I don't have a solution, but of course the global portal would be perfect, but I don't believe in this, or it's not there actually. So we have this. It is nice if it is community driven, and it is, yeah, it's self, or it's a working thing. So we do not. So it is maintaining itself somehow from the community. But if you would like to have this opportunity to really take all the information from different disciplines, it's quite difficult if it is spread somewhere in different communities, and if it is also maintained in a different way. So it is, I don't know how to manage it in a good way.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Ron. I think that they would need to be in the same place, digital space, but that finding ways to get communities to that space to work would be interesting. There's also potential, right? Like, depending on however that looks, there might be interesting interactions between disciplines and communities that wouldn't normally engage.
And depending on how you break up the disciplines, you have lots of people who will work across disciplines anyway, and who may sometimes put something in this one, or sometimes be more working on that one, and they might need both. And I think having them consistent is going to be very important, so that not one thing says, oh, you should do this, and the other says, well, in this discipline you should do that. I mean, there must be differences, but they shouldn't be completely, you know, not at the top level that this is a good thing to do, if that makes sense.
Yes, so this was one of the first idea when we started the working group, so that we normally have not so many projects only coming from one discipline. So you have normally more disciplines involved in one project, and how to help those disciplines to work together, right? To start planning their data management. When so many, or when 3, 4, 5 disciplines are coming together in one project. And therefore it should be consistent that each discipline can have a look on maybe their guidance, but the guidance should be structured in the same way for every discipline.
Yeah, that's exactly. I wanted just to add, with respect to RDM kit, it's done via the means of templates, very generic templates that what is the objective, what are the considerations, what are possible solutions, etc. Very, very generic structure. And then I think that would fit everyone, I suspect. It's nothing, it's not this discipline specific.
So how much do you think would be discipline specific? I mean, this is probably touching on question 3. So there's certainly things that would be the same across disciplines, but how much do you think would need to be added to each, to a sort of a standardish template for each discipline? I mean, I assume it's going to be different lengths, if you like, for different disciplines. But do you have a feeling for how much that would be? Like how much you would have to add on for a given discipline? Or how much you'd have to change for a given discipline?
I mean, this is, I guess, one of the things we would like input on as to, what are the
Sorry.
things. Yeah, I mean, just to, if commenting from my own experience, like I work with researchers from disciplines within, say, mathematics as opposed to computer science and bioinformatics and things like that, and yeah, quite a lot of the mathematicians find some of the questions to be not quite relevant to them, the data management templates that we use. And so one of my motivations is to essentially find out what sort of things would help them with it. So for example, some of the theoretical mathematicians, all they have is just their theories and maybe a handful of formulas and pretty much it. And so what would they archive as the documentation, things like that. So yeah, so for our hope is somewhat to get a little bit more input on that for us to craft it. At least that's my perspective. I don't, guys, for my fellow co-hosts, yeah.
And I will add, so in our survey, we just displayed it in those like broad groupings, but we do have the data for very specific what people identified as their discipline. So we have them define their groupings plus that. So we should be able to also, hopefully in the future, tease apart a little bit more kind of that, like more examples like Santosh just gave of that kind of case study there.
Yeah, so and also so I'm working with chemists a lot, and when they were talking about data management plans, what they were always missing is questions about handling the samples, because in chemistry you have a lot of physical samples to work with, and these parts are always missing in the data management plan, right? And this is also, it's not digital data, but it's quite data. And we have at the KIT in Germany, there is a resource data bank, where you only put in your samples. So it's more a sample data bank, right? But for chemists, this is really, really important. And you have to include it in the template as well. So this is missing in most of the templates, but maybe it's quite enough to put it in a guidance, anything like this. So to have a hint for these research sample data bank or anything like this. So so we don't know how to include that now without creating thousands of templates.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about handling physical samples, because one of the projects we did a long time ago when ARDC was still ANS was with the Australian synchrotron. And I remember interviewing someone from protein crystallography and saying, so what would make you reuse someone's data? And that person said to me, I would have to know the brand of the fridge that they cooled their sample in. And I went like, what? Can you run that past me again? But perfectly right, because for physical samples, you have completely different ways that you need to look at how a sample was handled. it's the equivalent of what software have you used on it to sort of process this data. But you're right, it doesn't really often get a look in. So, you know, maybe you'd have to add something, or maybe sometimes it's not so much about the discipline, but about the type of data you're doing. So if you're handling samples, then there might need to be a section on, if you handle physical samples, then please, you know, look at these things as well. And again, you probably get ethics as well for some types of samples, which, you know, the mathematician probably doesn't have a problem with if they're using formulas, but or if you're using weather data, that's probably not so much an issue. But if you're using human data or animal data or interviews in the humanities and social sciences, that could be that's a different section again.
From that, Stephanie, it sounds like kind of the blue skies approach would be something where you could select your discipline, but also select like what forms of data your project is going to include, and then it would pull in the guidance for those various pieces. That would be amazing. It'd be difficult to do, but
like a decision tree kind of thing, like the ones that exist for licensing, for example. Although that's much easier, I guess.
yeah. Any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, do you need to look at local or regional or national guidelines as well? Because presumably our guidelines are slightly different from the ones in the Netherlands or Germany. Just to make it a bit harder.
Do you mean general guidelines or?
Yeah, that would probably be mostly part of the general, wouldn't it? So, Daniela, if you created a guidance for Aachen, then you would probably have to consider anything that the university might have that would cut across the whole university. But for example, someone in the Netherlands would have a slightly different section there, I would guess. Oh, your video is doing strange things.
Oh, yes, I see.
I hope it's just your video.
It's too early in the morning for the video as well. Ah, no, a fly was sitting on my camera. Now it's away. Yes, so in the survey we asked about if they still have any guidelines, any principles they are working with, and all these things, but there were only general answers were given. So most don't know about any discipline-specific guidance they still having. Most say the DFG, the good research practice, but this is really general. So we don't have so many discipline guidance they mentioned. I think we have no discipline guidance. So therefore, when you know any guidance, so feel free to let us know.
I think in Australia, if at all, it'll be the funding, the funders that might have some guidance. Like we have a National Health and Medical Research Council, I think. They fund research in broadly speaking, health and medical, and they might have some guidance, but that would then apply to that, not anywhere else necessarily. And we have the Australian Research Council, and they probably only have generic information, because again they just go across all kinds of disciplines. But I can actually have a look. I should know this. I'll have a look.
Stephanie, we have similar things here in the US where different funders have different requirements, and also for certain data types. So if you're under a certain funder and you're collecting like genetic sequence data, there's certain requirements for what you have to do with that. But then again, that can cross disciplines again.
So just jumping back to your how to develop and what structure and format. I don't know if you do get if you do get frequently asked questions, that could be another thing to keep in mind if people want to know specific things on a regular basis. That's another way of possibly updating guidance too. And in a way, so part of the maintenance and sustaining the guidance could also be regular evaluation cycles, where you actually ask people who have used the guidance, okay, so you used it, have you really made use of it? What were the outcomes? What would you change? That sort of thing.
Does the others maybe have also an idea?
A question to you. in your survey, did you also ask questions around the training needs or everything, or on training or information need around data management? Do we know if people are actually asking, in demand of RDM guidance? Or where are the need, where is the demand expressed? This could also direct how and what to develop.
No, we don't ask for the training needs. We only ask if there are or if they know already training resources in their field for RDM. But most we get were general training resources, like the training from the university library, trainings from what was it? So, but it was not so discipline specific. So it was only general training resources they mentioned. Like from the mantra was also mentioned sometimes. So it's only general things. But we don't ask for the needs. So sorry.
I can say in a separate service, so I'm at Pennsylvania State University in the US, and we've asked similar questions to that just within our institution. We asked a question of, I'm a STEM research data librarian, so we were focused on STEM disciplines. But we asked them what types of RDM training would they be interested in, and actually the top one of that was developing a data management plan. So I think obviously that's a very small one case study use case for it, but I think there will be and is out there demand for something like this.
Yeah, actually I can concur, because we did such a survey in our institution 2 years ago, and it's exactly this. It's the DMP. But it's also, there's a very good reason, because in our case, it is now compulsory to have one since 2-3 years, and now it is really compulsory. So that answers the question, yeah.
Yeah, we might have had a similar response for that reason, is more and more funding agencies in the US are now requiring them, and we're about to have a big one with our National Institute of Health requiring all proposals to have them.
Correct, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would just reflect what Brianna and Paulette said. Yeah, at UDEL, we ran a survey as well, and we had similar requests. Though we had some mentioned about trainings that people would like on, say, things like version control and things like that were there. But the DMPs, especially based on funder requirements from like NVAO and Zonway, that was also something that the researchers said they would like. Yeah.
And I also think, to Yvonne's point earlier, I know myself as a data librarian, I'm excited to have something that, as I said, I'm expected to cover all STEM disciplines. My background's in the life sciences, so I have that, but I've been having to learn about the other disciplines in order to support them best. And so having a tool like this would be really useful for kind of being able to have that quick aid. And for new data librarians, new data stewards coming into the field as a learning tool.
Are there any more comments or questions? No. Paulette is say no, I don't have any more. If there isn't any more, I would close this session. Actually, I prepared already a slide saying thank you for the fruitful discussion because I expected this. And yeah, thank you for giving me all your ideas. And so we collecting everything. From my side, I really have to say we should include more the whole working group. It's also to my other co-chairs. So maybe because now the attendance list was quite short, maybe we organize within the next months a general working group meeting. So and collect more ideas and really work out certain points in detail. I would suggest it. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the session also. And yeah, we are going to also summarize the results from the survey in the next months. And I would like, again, thank you. Thanks also to my co-chairs and to the participants and also to our host today. And also for this input, which was very good. And so, thank you. And and I would like to, yeah, say goodbye. Have a nice day or night or sleep or being awake. It depends. And see you soon, actually.
Thank you